Technik. Ihr sagt Bescheid, wann wir anfangen sollen, oder?
Ist perfekt.
Oder sollen wir, also jetzt oder sollen wir bis Viertel nach warten, wie gesagt?
Jetzt ist es so still, jetzt musst du anfangen.
Jetzt fangen wir an.
Yes.
Wunderbar. Herzlich willkommen, alle lieben Gäste. Mein Name ist Matylda Krzykowski und ich habe die große Ehre, diesen Abend zu moderieren, auf Einladung von der Marlene Peltzek Stiftung und auf Suggestion von Lukas Feireis, der hier auch zu Gast ist. Bevor ich Ihnen erkläre, wie der Abend verläuft, wird Jan Schultheis uns erklären, wie es zu dieser Veranstaltungsreihe kommt und in welchem Kontext sich das befindet. Also würde ich vorschlagen, dass Jan Schultheis jetzt zugeschaltet wird und erstmal spricht. Einen kleinen Applaus für Jan Schultheis.
Hello, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm prepared to speak in English. I hope
Sorry,
that's okay.
Mike.
And I hope you can also see my screen.
Yes.
Can you?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. A warm welcome to you all, both at Berlinische Galerie and online. Thank you very much for your interest in this event and for joining us. Your interest and support mean a lot to us, the initiative Haus Marlene Peltzek, and we are very happy to have this exchange with you here tonight. My name is Jan Schultheis. I'm one of the founders of the initiative. I'm an art historian and urban planner. And I would like to share with you just some brief information on Marlene Peltzek, who is the namesake for our initiative. Who was she? Why is her legacy important and inspiring for us? And what is our initiative aiming for? Now, who was Marlene Peltzek, Marlene Möschke Peltzek? She was a sculptor and architect. Sculptor and architect who lived from 1894 to 1985. One of the points that we feel is particularly remarkable is that she was able to work creatively and to build in the first decades of the 20th century. It was not common then, and it is still not fully routine and obvious in architecture and Baukultur today. Marlene Peltzek was a pioneer in early modernism. She was a partner for life and work. She was a mother and a lot more. In this image, you can see her together with her husband Hans Peltzek. They shared an intense artistic and loving relationship. But Marlene Peltzek largely remained in his shadow up until today. And I realize that the image is a little bit lagging behind, but I hope that's okay. Marlene left behind a broad creative legacy, and I would like to share with you some examples. She worked as a sculptor. She also worked on stage design for theater and movie sets. And she worked on these magnificent lamps, which are of particular interest to us. You'll find them in the House of Radio Broadcast, the Haus des Rundfunks. It was built by Hans Peltzek and just celebrated its 90th anniversary. And Hans and Marlene collaborated on the building, and Marlene, for instance, created these lamps. And for the anniversary, the artist Julia Ziegler developed an art installation and recreated the lamps as 100 lanterns. And we used these lanterns during a lantern parade 2 weeks ago. And we are very happy that Julia Ziegler is with us tonight, and one of the lanterns is on stage tonight. Now, the core of our initiative and the starting point is the house Marlene Peltzek in Berlin, which Marlene built in 1930 for her family and her studio and the studio of her husband. It's a masterpiece and milestone in the emancipation in architecture. And by the way, Marlene Peltzek worked closely with landscape architect Hertha Hammerbacher to form a close union of the house, the garden, and the adjoining Grunewald forest. Now, this next image really exemplifies the goals of our initiative. It shows the topping out ceremony in 1930 with both Peltzeks and others. In the 1980s, the image was used in an article by the Bauwelt magazine for architecture and urbanism, and Marlene was cut off. I hope you can see the red line. And this is really symbolic for the recognition that many women architects and artists have been denied. So our vision for the house is, or shall I say was, to establish a residency program for 3 to 4 women masters of building, Baumeisterinnen. And they would stay here for a few months, live here and work here creatively. We envisioned a house for equal rights, one of its kind, in the city, in the country, in the world. A public house of creativity and dialogue with exhibitions and events. It is this spirit that we want to explore with the event series, Mother of All Arts. We want to create a broad, public, interdisciplinary dialogue with outstanding personalities on fundamental issues of architecture, Baukultur, and the arts. We want to develop new approaches for everyone involved in this field from a gender equitable perspective. The house was radically altered in the 1950s. It received a traditional German gabled roof and lost much of its modernist edge and appeal, but it kept its core. Tragically, these alterations would later lead to the refusal by the Berlin Monument Protection Department to list and thus protect the building. If you allow me just one side remark, Veit Harlan, the film director and actor who produced several propaganda movies for the Nazis, lived and worked here right after the Peltzeks. 4 years ago, the building changed owners and the new owner kept it vacant and last year took away its roof, which led to rapid decay. Last year, on the basis of a petition with almost 5,000 signatures, we founded the initiative Haus Marlene Peltzek, among them citizens, architects, professors, and the grandchildren of the Peltzeks and Hertha Hammerbacher. We wanted to develop a vision and to gain support for the house, to preserve the unique heritage, and to recognize Marlene's legacy. Here you see a rally in the framework of the festival Women in Architecture. We also placed an information column in front of the building, and we installed a plaque to honor Marlene Peltzek, and Hannah Cooke will talk more about this in a moment. Then, 3 weeks ago, everything changed. To our surprise, astonishment, and shock, the demolition began. Despite a last-minute rally and a talk with the brand new owners, we could not stop the demolition. We could actually stop it for just a few hours. Now, how was this possible? How was it possible that a place with such a rich history and significance could be turned into rubble? One might ask, would the building have been demolished if it had been built by Hans Peltzek, not Marlene? Now, some of us want to further explore this question to ensure that other monuments don't share the same fate. What's next? The initiative wants to continue. How, we don't quite know yet. We're still discussing. Mother of All Arts will continue, and there'll be 2 more evenings on cross-generational influences and dynamics in creative families on the 9th of December, and on coexistence and collaboration between pairs of architects in early 2022. And you're cordially invited. Please get in touch with us if you have any questions, ideas, or want to get involved. You can also subscribe to our newsletter. Before I close, I would like to thank everybody who has supported this event and made it possible. Lukas Feireis for giving us the idea from Mother of All Arts. Matylda Krzykowski, I hope I pronounced it correctly, for leading us through the evening, for her guests who will share their visions and insights with us. Antonia Noll, Felix Zohlen, and other members of our initiative for their immense support. The Berlinische Galerie for generously welcoming us to their magnificent facilities and for their technical support. Ben Laser for his support behind the camera, and everybody else who I might have forgotten. Now I want to thank you all for your attention and wish you an insightful and inspirational evening.
Thank you, Jan. Now it's my turn, and I apologize for speaking German earlier, but I was just in the blues, basically. I first would like to maybe speak to Lukas Feireis, who is sitting in the second check, yeah. Because when I was invited to host this series, like the first of the series, the idea of run the world wasn't mine, even though it really looks like we're running the world at this setup that you can see. Because it's also about breaking the classical kind of way of conversation or the lecture series, but really having a conversation about how we would run the world. And there is a reason why these 3 titles exist, and maybe Lukas want to quickly explain how he came up with it.
Well, it's a teamwork, but thank you, Matylda, for doing this tonight. As Jan very eloquently portrayed kind of the background of this whole event, and with this dialogue series, the whole initiative, we thought that it's important to bring it to present day. So this is all kind of, we're looking a lot at the past, but how can this be transported into the present and into the future? And make it also approachable and interesting for a crowd that's beyond, let's say, art historians or architecture historians, but really broad. Hence this idea of this kind of threefold dialogue series. First you guys, and then you totally took your own turn, which is great, which I love about your work, because I think we both love mediation and bringing topics across a very broad audience, but you always find your own twist. So I've never seen this setup before, and I'm very excited about it. And it does look like you're running a world. But regarding the titles you saw, it's like Run the World, Family Affair, and I think Bonnie and Clyde. And actually, who recognizes? Yes, tell me. Thank you. So this gives us the notion of the also, let's say, more popular approach that we are trying, or more playful approach with this. And yes, it's a shame that the building it's a tragedy, is torn down. And I think Jan's question is right. If there would be a Hans Peltzek building, it would not have been torn down. However, it's torn down, it's the past, and I generally also I'm not a big fan of reconstructions, but let's go look into the future and what we have here right now. Hence, I think, and maybe this is a great starting point, this initiative can become something and maybe develop in some kind of a residency nonetheless for master builders or Baumeisterin. So anyways, that's the simple introduction.
Perfect. Give him an applause.
But I don't keep the mic. I do not want to keep the mic.
You can give me a mic.
Maybe you have another one.
So imagine you get that kind of email. Do you want to host a conversation that is titled Run the World? I felt a bit of pressure, but I really wanted to break the classical way of presentation and make it and turn it into a conversation. And in this context of what the foundation is doing, and I'm personally really interested in systemic change and how can we introduce this systemic change, I was really thinking, who do I want to be with at a table? And I really thought to invite these 4 people due to reasons of not that they only formulate criticism, but they also make work that makes this criticism visible and suggests certain things that we could approach or change in the way we work and live. And basically it's about questioning standards and regulations and role concepts. And it's about learning to unlearn. So we have here on my left side, and for you on your right side, we have Hannah Cooke, an artist. Do I pronounce it right? Cooke? Cooke.
Captain Cook.
Captain Cooke. Hannah Cooke. And then we have Alexander Auris, an architect. Angelika Hinterbrandner, also an architect. And yeah, Anna Yeboah, also an architect, I would say, right?
Yeah.
Formally speaking. So what I first would like you to do, the 4 of you, introduce yourself quickly in 1, 2, or 3 sentences.
Okay, then I start. So thank you for the invitation. My name is Hannah Cooke. I'm an artist, a quite conceptual artist, and I was asked by the initiative House Marlene Peltzek to create a work, which I will get into later. I live in Karlsruhe right at the moment, and all my work is based on criticism and institutional critique. And yeah, so
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexander Rouris. I'm an architect from Peru, but I moved to Brussels 3 years ago, and that's where I live now.
But you used to live in Berlin also for a while.
Yeah, and in Denmark a little bit too.
Hi, my name is Angelika Hinterbrandner. Thank you, Matylda, for the invitation. I'm a trained architect. My work is floating between a variety of different formats, I would say. I understand my practice is not really object-bound, but rather systemic and structural. So it's a lot of different formats in communication. Maybe some might be considered even activism. We will talk about that one later. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Anna Yeboah. I am also, like you, a trained architect, but I left the classical field of building last year to join a project on decolonization. So now I work for the initiative of Black people in Germany. And yeah, I think we'll talk about more soonish, no?
We will certainly do. So just to understand the setup, we are at the table that suggests a meeting. And we have a lot of objects, things, references of the work of these 4 people here. And in between, we will use this table camera to show you some of these things. At the moment, we have a brick over here, and you must wonder, what is the brick about? It's a brick of that building of Marlene Peltzek that was just 2 weeks ago destroyed, and we thought that it's a good symbol to start the conversation with. So I will start first with Hannah. And each of these 4 people will introduce one specific work that they are working on via this table camera.
Okay.
Oh God.
Yeah. So, okay, so what you can see here is the memorial plaque for Marlene Peltzek I did last summer, actually. It's quite recent. So there was this wonderful house. It was wonderful once, but now it's demolished. And in front of the house, you can see there is the mural. And you had a plaque which was remembering Hans Peltzek. So there was no word about Marlene Peltzek, and actually she was the architect. So the initiative House Marlene Peltzek asked me to kind of think of a work that deals with the whole situation, about also remembering, and to create something that is there, is visible, and accompanies the demonstration in June or July, I forgot. So I came up with the idea to redo this memorial plaque, sorry, my English. The original one for Hans Peltzek was already torn down, so we don't know where it is. it just went away, I don't know. And I built one in kind of the same dimensions as the original, honoring Marlene Peltzek and also making her kids and her husband visible. So that it was quite important for me to not erase, to not exclude, but to have everyone mentioned who was living there. Yeah, and so right now it's still hanging there. The house is torn down, but the wall is still up, and I will probably take it down tomorrow. Yeah, so, and then we will have to see what we will do with the plaque.
You definitely have to document the way how you hang it up and keep it for documentary reason. I'm going to continue with Alex, who produced a film that is titled 4.6 kilometers that happens in Brussels and talks about queerness and how being free is really important.
Yes, I'm Alex. As I said, I didn't explain my topic of research, but it's I research queerness, which I'm later going to explain my perception on this concept. Specifically talking about the first work, I developed a more short movie documentary about queer experience in Brussels. And should I move to present? Okay. Okay, so
The brick is still here.
okay, so I did some dance before, so it's okay. Yeah, this is Brussels, the center of Brussels, and my interest in this short movie was to actually explain the difference in experience and how the space and the neighborhoods where we live affect the way we act in the public space for queer people, for women, and maybe for some men. So in order to connect these experiences and talk about space, I decided to make a walk that connects the neighborhood here, Molenbeek, where I work and live, and Ixelles. These two neighborhoods are very different regarding their demographic. One very conservative and the other one very international and open. So these 2 points, extreme points, are 4.6 kilometers separated, and they connect 5 different spaces in the city, and they and in each of these spaces are told by the experience of a queer person from Brussels. And these are some images, but it's better if I present the teaser I did for the teaser of the movie.
It's all a performance.
No, I cannot, it's okay. Okay, I hope you can hear something. Ay. It's available on YouTube, just in case. But the last thing I wanted to say about this project is that me being an immigrant after Corona and doing an international master's, I ended up my studies without a network of friends or professional network. And when I was proposed by the Oslo Triennale to do this project that was premiered last month in Oslo, I found myself with no one to participate in this project. So everything I could do was actually go online through using dating apps, Instagram, every social media I could find to find people who participate. And that's how I constructed my neighborhood in a way, my network of friends now, and how I did this movie. Okay, thanks.
This was the perfect connection point, so I would like to go on with social media. We're right into the topic, I would say. So I will just hand over this, like 2 pages to you first, and maybe then you can scroll through Context Tour. So I will present Context Tour, one of the frameworks I'm working in. Context Tour is actually as well the place that I got in touch with the house Marlene Peltzek the first time. So I'm connected through social media, as you just pointed out. Like, that's how networks work today. Context Tour itself is a platform for architecture. It's not only the Instagram account. There's as well a website where we are doing interviews on, a platform for not only young architects, but rather a space to give people a voice, as we understand it. And we're kind of like, the curatorial approach of picking guests for the interviews is not so much about picking big names, but rather like finding interesting perspectives in the practice or like within architecture. It's not only architects speaking, but a variety of people that are working in a spatial practice, let's say. And then there is the Instagram account that is maybe the most active part of Context Tour overall. So currently you see 2 accounts. There's the big general account, and then there is Context Tour Jobs. Yeah, perfect. That's the website with the interviews. And if you can go to the Instagram maybe for a second, then into the stories, if this is possible, because this is where the magic happens, I would say. A lot of the discourse and current questions in architecture are discussed there. It's quite interesting, and it enables exactly what you described, Alex, like to bring people together, to form networks, to exchange positions, and to mediate things that we are interested in, but the community is interested in as well. And to add another aspect to the project, it's Katharina Benjamin, Patrick Martin, and me running it. But Katharina and I, as a female like head of content team, are basically running the whole thing.
I actually really love it also that you call it a digital magazine spinning around architecture. So you also give spinning classes on on some evenings of the week. Thank you very much, Angelica. Give her applause.
Thank you.
Yeah. And now we're going to have Anna Yeboah talking about Decolonial, memory culture in the city. And I also have to explain, this is very selfish, this whole group, for me, because I've never met Anna, and I always wanted to meet her. I sit in the same office like Angelica, but I've never worked with her. I've met Alexander only recently, and I thought the way he speaks about queerness is so important, and the more people have to listen to. And I've never met Hannah. So it's also really important whenever you curate or have the possibility to bring people on a table. It's about breaking, the canon and inviting different people that you've never worked with before. So I'm very excited to hear more about Anna as well.
Yeah, you give me a sign when I'm talking too long, because it's not easy to wrap this project up very shortly. But yeah, I will try. So briefly, Decoloniale, memory culture in the city is the subtitle. We are trying to...
I think you have to speak a bit louder. And then
is it better now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are trying to render the colonial past of Berlin and of Germany visible. So it's a project that is deeply rooted in Berlin, and it's carried out by 4 organizations. I myself am in there for the Initiative of Black People. There are other NGOs. We are the majority in the project, and the City Museum. And this is the structural things. They might sound boring, but they're very important to the project because it's the first time that the descendants of the colonized are actually included in the reappraisal of this history. So this is a model project. It has not been done before. We are the first of our kind, and we are trying, to deal with this difficult history. And we are trying to do so with doing exhibitions. We opened our first one only a month ago, but we also, in a way.
You do the residencies also, no?
Yeah, we do have a residency. We are trying to have urban interventions, mostly in Berlin, to see whether we can change the narratives with some performative tryouts. And we are consulting museums on how to deal with their difficult collections and exhibitions also. So this is another part. And the last part is a mapping that is, being carried out throughout the project. So we are trying to map colonial history because we know there is basically no knowledge about this. It's not taught in schools. So there are many people looking at our project to see whether they can, educate themselves or bring in their own research because it has not been done so far.
Mm-hmm. I remember in a previous conversation in preparation for this, you told me that it's also, you only have a specific time frame for this project, or is it the idea that it will be prolonged?
No, it's we are funded by the Berlin Senate for Culture and also by the Federal Cultural Foundation, and we have a funding that goes that is for 5 years. So we've been doing this for 2 years now, almost half time, and it will end by the end of 2024.
Okay. Thank you very much. At last, Anna. Whenever I teach or whenever I speak to people, I always think that there is a confusion when it comes to terminology very often. And obviously there is an agenda between each of his practitioners here at the table, and all of them have to do something with transformation or systemic change. And there is four terms that I have in mind when I think of the four of you separately. And I would like you to maybe explain them. And the first term that I'm gonna put into conversation is queerness. Alex, can you explain what queerness is to us?
Hello again. I know I already said hello. Sorry. Queerness. I don't think I've created or I have a new. Explanation of what queerness is. I like to work with two different definitions of queerness. One is the one that relates LGBTIQ plus people and how, let's say, different from the heteronormal patriarchy and how that actually creates a change or could create a change. The other one is it's not directly the definition of queerness, but it's a definition of lesbianism by Uchi Curiela, Central American feminist. She defines lesbianism as a political position that gives balance to the heteronormative and heteropatriarchal society. And I see queerness very much related to that, because I think you can be queer without being straight. Let's say that, but it implies a political position. It implies a different point of view and, in a way, a decision to try to change things. So yeah, that's it.
That's good. Maybe you should not applaud each time, right?
No.
I would like to move on with the next term, which is decolonization, that I want to have answered by Anna.
Mm-hmm. That's a very nice question that I cannot answer. No, sorry. I have the same to say like you. It's there are. I mean, this term is like very prominent right now. It's giving around a lot, and there are a lot of definitions. But from my place, I can say that decolonization is like an aim. It has not been reached. We don't know how it will be like, but we are decision to try to do better. No, that's what you said. I like that a lot. And there's another definition by Frans Fanon, which I would like to bring to this evening. I have not written it down, but it's something like decolonization is a moment of total chaos in the first place. And I like this definition also a lot. And I was just thinking right now, because 2038 is lying there, you're also having this concept of total chaos or breakdown before something better can come. So maybe there's a link.
Lauter sprechen.
Yeah, sorry. Next time I will be very close to the microphone.
Thank you so much. I really wrote it down because I find it really important. It's something that it hasn't been reached. I find it powerful. I'm gonna move on to the next term for Hannah, which is feminism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to be invited as an artist and then have to talk about feminism. I mean, my artistic work is a feminist, of course, and when I was in high school, university, I was also part of a feminist collective we built, and we made this publication, Body of Work. So I have quite a lot of approaches to deal with feminism. In my work, I can't give a statement what feminism is. I mean, everyone actually knows there are kind of many ways. I think we have to work with feminism quite even more and stronger and make it intersectional. And as my work, I'm a white privileged woman living in Germany. So for me, feminism looks totally different than maybe feminism for you or for you or for you. So I guess, yeah.
I think it's more, of course, about personal views in the context of your work, in the context of how you see the world and how you act around it, you know? I mean, when my students ask me how I feel about feminism, I just say, well, I think everyone today should be a feminist, you know, because it's just about being against a system that puts, the patriarchy to the fore.
Yeah, it's about closing gaps and making the world and spaces also in urban places more accessible, and also this museum making
safe.
It more have safe spaces and places. So, yeah.
Thank you, Hannah. And then we're going to go over to Angelika Hinterbrandner, who's going to talk about inclusion.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you why you appointed the inclusion to me.
I mean, to be honest, I had this list, and they obviously were more terms on it, and some of them, you know, like I wouldn't even separate it so much, you know. Like I could put four terms into each of you.
Yeah.
But it's more about having a conversation about how you perceive these terms and how you perceive them also within your work and how you deal with it to the outer world. It's not each of these words have a meaning, and how do you deal with that meaning?
That's right. I think I rather
can pick us another one. Huh?
No, that's totally fine. I think adding on to what you said, I would say I understand feminism a lot, and it's the same for me with inclusion, as a way of thinking, or rather an understanding of the world that enables me to understand where I'm positioned and how I need to deal with the world to not pass on oppression, or to understand how to enable others. So it's rather about understanding how the overall setup of the world is than like a specific way of how to do things for me. And it's the same with, inclusion is somehow for me opening up the platform for others, let's say, to enable others to speak up, because like speaking and being present somewhere is like gives power to people. And I think that's like a way of understanding the world. On the other hand, this very classic, let's say, understanding of the word is like positioned within 4 words, like separation. I wrote it down: exclusion, separation, integration, and inclusion. So you can put it down on the. And there is this very nice graphic that explains it in one go.
Wow.
A lot of colorful dots, let's say. So integration is like having a group of people being part, but like being still their own group, and inclusion enables everyone to be on the same level. And I think that's the goal we should aim for.
Can you look at it quickly? Can you just tell us quickly, where do you got the graph from?
If you Google inclusion, you will find it. That's the basic.
Okay. Because I
Yeah.
think it's always interesting to hear about this sources. We're gonna give it another round of work examples, because I think it would be nice to hear more about what you actually do. And Anna, you talked in the context of Decolonial about an exhibition, a recent exhibition that you just opened that is called Looking Back. Maybe you want to give me some of the pictures and I put them down?
Yeah, we've opened it 15th. Can you hear me clear now? Yes. We've opened it 15th of October in the Museum Treptow, which is a very special place. I for myself didn't know that Berlin has 12 district museums, very small, tiny museums that are doing great work in a very small local circus. And for Treptow, we worked together with them on this exhibition, on the first colonial exhibition that was happening in Treptower Park in 1884. In this exhibition, 106 people from the former German colonies were brought to Berlin. They were exhibited like zoo animals for months, and thousands of Berliners went there to have a blast watching them doing, I don't know, normal things like cooking or cleaning or dancing or whatever. And the stories of these people have not been told so far. So we reworked this exhibition to really show what kind of people these were, so not to like display them again, but to get into their biographies, and also to give a broader context of what historical ratifications led to such awful exhibitions. I mean, this was not the only one. It was one of many that maybe called Völkerschau. And
So the documentation of all the 163 people, 83 people exist?
No, not all of them. I mean, it's very well documented. It's a German power thing to like document this very closely. There are 106 of them. We have very detailed biographies on almost 40 of them, and we have also left some space in the exhibitions to be filled up for the other 81 that are missing. And one of the tasks with the exhibition also is that the material we have comes from the Deutsche Reich Anthropologen, no? So there's been racial studies made on these people, and this is the documentation we have, and we were trying to present this in an empowering way without discriminating or hurting anybody.
You also brought a graphic that very strongly stands for the history of it, like the graphic that you showed me with the binoculars.
Binoculars, yeah. I mean, this project, this one.
I was talking about the graphic related to the exhibition.
I mean, this is related to the exhibition.
Okay.
So I brought so many.
Yes, this one.
Yeah, the exhibition is called Zurückgeschaut, Looking Back. It's also in English, so English speakers can go there too. And the title comes from a guy whose name is Quelle Ndumbe. He was brought to the exhibition from Cameroon. And while being on display in Treptower Park, he bought himself a pair of opera glasses and he looked back at the audience. So he got kind of a symbol for our exhibition, but in a broader way, he is also a symbol for the resistance that has always been there against racialized practices like this.
Thank you so much, Anna. We're gonna move over also about the work from Alex Auris. You want to talk about your voguing events?
Yes, I hope I will later reply to something that you said that it's related to my research, but I don't know.
Please go on.
No, I was just gonna say that while doing my research of queerness in Berlin, I started, started researching all the history of events that related to LGBTIQ people from this since 1800, and there was Magnus Herschel. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. He was one of the first activists about sexuality and specifically being a lesbian or a homosexual in Berlin before the 1900s, and he based some of his studies saying that in the human zoos, because also in the human zoos people were exhibited having sex. So by him saying or showing to other people that, for example, homosexuality was also something practiced not in Berlin but in other colonies, in other parts of the world, then that became an argument to say that, it's, nature, natural, etc. So that's it, which is kind of weird. Yeah.
Absurd.
Okay. The second project I wanna talk about is Voguing Practices. I helped to organize in Brussels, but to start talking about that, which is the image on the left, I have to start talking about the image in the right. Again, during the Summer Architecture Festival of Brussels, I was asked I applied to do a performance in the center of Brussels, in Mont des Arts. And again, I found myself without any people I knew, so I started reaching out on Instagram. And I reached out to the guy in the right, Marlon, a Brazilian dancer from Brussels. Well, he lives in Brussels. And I knew because he belonged to a house related to the ballroom community. And he did voguing, and he knew Blue Raven, which is the other guy in the left. And together we presented a performance in the center of Brussels. And through my connection with other people I met also through Instagram that worked in a theater, I connected Raven, who practiced Vogue in the train stations of Brussels, actually not in a closed space, nor in a safe space, but just in the public space. And I introduced these two people, and together we started organizing voguing events, trying to create safe spaces for people who wanted to vogue. So in a way, of course, it relates to ballroom community, that relates to being LGBTIQ plus or queer, but it's not close to only queer people, let's say, but people who want to do Vogue. And these events are open practices, they are not shows, so it's not like someone can go to see, you have to actually dance. Yes.
You have participated.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. The next one would be...
I think I'm left.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I will show a video. So I need the sound, yeah. So this work is called Ada Versus, and you can see me with my daughter Ada sitting in front of a lookalike of Marina Abramovic. So everything you can see here is restaged. I built the whole setup, the clothes, the furniture I tried to copy in an exact way, and of course Marina Abramovic as a double. And I sit with my daughter, breastfeeding her. Yeah, so the video goes 10 minutes. I will not show the 10 minutes, but fast forward so you can see it's just a very slow motion camera close up to us. And the second one, it's kind of the similar story. I'm sitting in my bed of Tracy Emin, or it looks like the original My Bed by Tracy Emin, which I also rebuilt in every detail. Both works of Abramovic and Emin are very well covered on media, so I was able to put a lot of effort into every detail, into every cigarette package, in every contraception and alcohol packaging, everything. So why I put myself into these two iconic works was that I got a daughter, I am an artist, and I was quite scared of my future, how to work or continue my work as an artist, because of course I know all these statements by a lot of people who don't think it's possible to be an artist and a mother at the same time. So once there was a teacher who recommended to one of my fellow student colleagues that she better get a housewife and have children than to continue her artistic career. So I was quite afraid that I can't be both at the same time. And then I read a lot and tried to find some idols or artists who deal with both and can bring both together. So there are some artists and also these quite big lists by artifacts. There are a few women under the top 100 artists, and only a few women have kids. So I went by these two statements by Abramovic and by Emin, who both mentioned in interviews that it's not possible to have both. You can't be a mother and you can't be an artist at the same time, or you can't be a great artist when you're a mother. So it's not only that they say it for themselves. I mean, every woman can choose on, I hope every woman can choose in the best case to have children or not, but in their position as such iconic and feminist artist, I think it's quite harsh to talk in a certain way about these topics. So I wanted to show it's possible. I didn't know that it's possible in that time, but somehow I wanted to strengthen myself and give a positive statement to it. So yes, these two works were made in 2018. Now Ada is 3.5 years old, and I'm quite happy about my situation. I'm sitting here discussing with you about all these topics, and I hope it will continue, and I hope that Abramovic and Emin will not say things like that anymore in future, and that students from art school are not afraid to have children. Yeah.
Question is also always what, yeah. Which obviously means I mean, the role models are really important to have these, and you have been in this case a role model. And also the question is always, which I ask myself, what is a great architect? What is a great artist? And what is a great designer? And this is the perfect moment to walk over.
No pressure.
to Angelika Hinterbrandner, who's going to introduce us to a second project that she is dealing also again with a group of people.
Yeah, I actually would like to exactly go on where you ended with caretaking. Because this aspect that you showed in your work is not only not valued in art, but in basically any other industry either. I mean, first of all, it's not compensated, so it's unpaid labor we are doing, especially as women. And on the other hand, the practice itself of like taking care of something and caring for something is just not valued, let's say. And I think this is a good starting point for the moratorium, the second project, because this is a lot about taking care of what is already there as well. Maybe Matylda, you can show the website. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm very abusive. So last year, together with Charlotte Malter-Barth and B+, so this is kind of like not in the framework of Context Tour, but in the framework of B+, Brandlume Plus, we proposed stop building. Very, of course, populist claim to do so. And we basically started with a series of talks on the topic. And the idea of not building anymore is very much connected to the idea of taking care of what is already there. So like this is the connection point I would say, or I would like to make. So we discussed how a reality could look like where we just stop using more resources, like just building more space, because there is already a lot of space that we could use. Of course, this is a very Western-centered idea of just stop building, because it's not affordable or like not possible for everyone to just stop constructing overall. But the idea of like just pushing this very bold thought and putting this into, or like giving it a platform and bringing it out to the world to have people discuss it and like to foster ideas around new practices of how we work as architects was very inspiring on one hand, because we tried on one hand to have a very diverse round of panels, not only on a male-female level, but as well on like a more global scale, let's say. The first panel was hosted by Charlotte Malter-Barth at Harvard GST. The second one was hosted at the ETH in Zurich. The third one at Vaxatere, all digital, of course, because it was during Corona. At Vaxatere in Venice, and the last one took place at San Gimignano in Lichtenberg. So we kind of like really tried to open up the discourse, and it was actually quite overwhelming. Yes, I would say overwhelming to have this feedback and so many, especially young people, interested in this idea of changing the practice and fundamentally rethinking how we work and how we think about as well about everything that is already there and existing. And I think this is maybe a very nice closing for the round of presentations, because it comes back to the
connect to it.
Yeah, please.
Because I think what you said with keeping what we already have and take it as a source to make new things. That's, for example, with Haus Marlene Peltzek.
Exactly.
It would have been a dream, because she, in her architecture, thought about how can we work and live at the same time in this house. So she built herself an atelier looking into the garden. His atelier was looking to the street, and the kids had their own wing in the house. So they were quite far away, but when they played in the garden, she could watch them from the inside of her atelier. And I think it would have been lovely to keep this as a model for future buildings, and of course it connects somehow to my work. So how can we care and work at the same time and handle it both at the same time?
I'm assuming, Anna, that you gave me the piece of paper because you want to respond to something.
I want to warn you, we cannot keep everything we have. No, we have some shitty things we have to get out of.
Get rid of.
I brought this Adinkra symbol. It's just a source of inspiration for me. So it's a sign language from Western Ghana, where my father comes from. And this symbol shows a bird that is taking its own egg on its back, and it means something. It means something like go get it. So you can take something from the past to learn from it and take it into the future. And it was very nice that you brought it up, and now we have
the image to it.
Yeah.
But how is it maybe with you, Alexander, with taking something from the past?
Taking something from the past. Well, I think every my work it's based on experiences, on personal experiences, and and some things I was thinking about when I was asked to participate in this event were how can I present my work, or how can I talk about my work and myself, and how can we run the world in a way, or how can we continue? And I realized that the way I continue, at least right now, is by these experiences I've had in the past, having learned to, for example, fail or rejection or etc., and then go further without having fear of that anymore, and which is like a trauma at the same time, but in a way also it makes me fearless, and I think that's the thing I most value about the past.
Put it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to necessarily say something. I just wanted to have it there.
Ah, okay, sorry. Sorry, the format is still sometimes a bit confusing because we decided that we have always different kind of references of the work and things that they inspire them, and then there will be obviously this moment when things are shoveled back and forth. But given the fact that you told us about your two main projects that you've done, and we talked strongly about networks and communities and about practices of emancipation, which in a way all of you are running a practice of emancipation, and you're creating safe spaces, which is also very important, safe spaces for you first, where you try to be a role model and have a broader conversation. So how do you think your personal work and the work that you're doing will affect your first, of course, your community and your network, and maybe potentially the world? Angelica, you want to answer first?
Such a hard question.
But it's a good question to start to figure out what the answer could be.
Let me jump in.
Yeah,
Can I
that's
have
good.
this picture? It's a picture of our project space in Berlin-Mitte. It's located in Wilhelmstraße, so it's the plot of the former Reichskanzlei. And this means this is the place where the Berlin Africa conference took place. So the conference where some people decided to run the world and divide it within themselves. You were asking how we are creating safer spaces for us and our communities, and we are really happy to have secured this place for our community. I've been working there for 1.5 years now, and there are a lot of people coming, visitors from Africa, coming to this place asking, where is the remembrance for this Berlin conference, no? And before we have moved in there, there has been none. Or, and this would be a question I have to Hannah, there is a memorial plaque. And there are a lot of memorial plaques in this area because we have the Berlin conference, we have the bunker where Hitler killed himself, there is a memorial for Georg Elser, there is another memorial Topographie des Terrors just around the corner, and so on and so on. So there's this conglomerate of memorial plaques, and as an architect, what to do with it, and the story of your work and your memorial plaque, it touched me on a different level, but I could not put my finger on it right now.
Yeah, I mean, what we try to do is to somehow keep the same style and just relabel it with the person we think is important to mention. And so Hannah Klein, who's also here, by Arto Vision, which is a safe space for me because they represent me as an artist and also try to connect and give platform for art producers and curators and artists. She wrote this text in this magazine, and in this magazine there's also you can read a lot about how to remember and how we create cities. And there's also one work here, where they are tearing down the old statues by, I don't know what it was right now, but of course you have to rethink who do you want to remember to, do you want to change things, is it possible? I mean, there's also always a big discussion when you want to remove this old traditional things like statues and buildings, and I mean it's with Humboldt Forum and everything, it's really going on this topic, and we just tried to have a similar style to keep the way history is told, but to put the right names on the plaque. So gekommen zu bleiben. It's really sad actually that it didn't stay, but we tried our best, I think.
But I know what you mean, this awkwardness of sometimes seeing certain monuments, a certain reference, you know that something historically speaking went wrong, and sometimes we cannot pinpoint it because we haven't spoken about it enough.
Yeah, I mean this, but I also mean like the bodily experience of meeting a memorial plaque. No, as an architect, you're also always thinking about the spatial experience and what does it do to your body. And then we have this broad culture of putting posters basically in the street and saying like, okay, now there's a reappraisal of history, but I don't have a solution. So
there is. I don't speak German, but there is this project called Stoppelstein.
Stolpersteine.
Yes, okay. So I found that quite interesting because it's not only in Berlin, it's all over Europe, in different cities of Europe. And you don't notice really, well, for the people that don't know, it's these plaques in the ground, in the sidewalks of the cities where people had that tells the information, name, datum, where they were born, where they were died, and the places where they were sent by the Nazis to concentration camps, for example, and the year. So they are put in every house where there is a registration of those events, and whenever they do that, they do kind of a ceremony with people that has been related to relatives, etc. So that I found interesting, not only because it's something that happens in different cities, but also something that you really cannot understand in the same way as when you see a plaque in a vertical position, in an open space, in a park, etc. So, yeah.
Angelica.
Do I need to solve the question still that you had before?
Okay, you could maybe go into this in the direction, or maybe it's also interesting to talk about how maybe the work that you've done so far. It doesn't matter if it's contextur or the stop construction. And then I was, like the how do you say it? Moratorium. Sorry, like I exhibited this work in an exhibition called Institution Building in Brussels, and I put a huge graphic that really says only stop construction next to Victor Horta building.
No, it says stop building with a question mark.
It's true. But still, like what I like about exhibition making is that the way you as a curator put different things in context, you can tell a different story. You can raise question by putting objects or exhibits or models next to each other. And obviously it was very well intended to do that next to a classical institution built by the Belgian Victor Horta, and having that big poster, because the poster was in perspective actually much bigger than the model itself. And the question is maybe I soften it up. It's like, how did your work have affected so far with the moratorium, the architectural landscape? Where do you hope maybe it could be brought to?
I think what I'm personally interested in very much is like building networks, so to enable more people to use knowledge and to like strengthen a topic or like go for something, because it's just easier to do it with more people than when you are alone. One thought that you kind of like started and we didn't end up going to was the topic of 2038 and how much of a crisis you actually need for change. And I think this is a super important and burning question at the moment. How much crisis, or like how much more pressure do we need? Because there is already so much pressure on like the system, let's say. It's very abstract, I know, but I mean, how do we deal with the climate crisis? Well, like how do we want to approach the future for the next generations if we are not able to like change how we work as society? So yeah, I really hope that through getting people connected and through developing ideas that can be used by more people, we can change something. And like having these networks and getting feedback like from people that are saying like, wow, it's so good that you're doing this, like connecting people. This is, I mean, it just, maybe it's very selfish, but it gives me hope that there is the possibility for change. That helps to keep going, doing what I do. So maybe it's a very individual, selfish thing, but I think this is the way how I deal with the crazy world.
No, I think it's important, but do you have one specific example that you would or could share with us?
Example in what sense?
You know, like, I don't know, like for example, the way I curate, I have a good example for it. It's, I call it, yeah, I mean, it's two things. Like, I even have a visual example for it. Vera Sacchetti and I, one of the people who I work constantly, and we are co-curating, we call the people who open doors and close doors the gatekeepers. We gave it a term because it's the people in institutions or in companies or in hiring processes or people who make decision making in like, you know, in institutional form. And they either open or close the doors. And Vera and I decided a long time ago, and we speak in public about it all the time, is whenever you have a power position, you make sure that you work with 50% of people you don't know, and this 50% have to have as diverse as possible. And that way we kind of created some sort of scenario that is a formula that is not only standing for our own work, but that could be also used by other people. So we have affected a lot of symposia, a lot of exhibitions, and a lot of programming where we changed or shifted the way we think we would like to run the world. So back the question to maybe all of you, what is the things that you've decided so far, what you've done, and can you give us an example how that has affected a community or has it affected a certain situation? Or maybe one person, could be also your neighbor.
Okay, so with my work, of course, as an artist, you do your work and you hope that it touches people or that they think about something. But in most of the times, you don't really get feedback. You have exhibitions. If you're lucky, some people will come to you and say something nice about it. But with this work with my daughter, Ada Versus, it was kind of a total different thing. It went viral with social media because it was, I had a talk in Monopol magazine, an interview, and all of a sudden I noticed how social media works. And a lot of women artists came to me and talked to me and wanted to share their experiences and said, okay, it's happening all the time. Women quit their artistic career, but now we can see like your statement is clear. There's also a different way to deal with the situation, and it was kind of touching to me to hear all these stories because I didn't expect that people would reach out to me and want to share their experiences. So yeah, this was the first work where I really noticed that you can have an impact. But of course, it's not always the case with, yeah.
Okay, I have another picture. It's the downer one. I'm sorry. We are talking about genocide now, but it's part of decolonization now. This is not an impact we have, but it's an impact I would like to have, and we are now seeing a picture.
Yeah,
Now better? Okay. I will try to remain silent. So we see a picture of a desert in Namibia, and we see a memorial place that has been set up by the local community there. So these graves, they might be empty because a lot of the human remains are here in Berlin collections. So if I could have an impact, I would like those human remains to be brought back to Namibia, to be put down in the earth as they should have been. And that's an impact that I would like to have. And talking about gatekeepers, I mean, Germany is the gatekeeper for that. No, I'm not a politician, I'm neither a museum director, but we know that we can lobby and push forward these things because there have been returns, and I think we have a moment now to be loud and to lobby for these restitutions to happen.
Yeah, it's very important.
I really don't want to answer this question. No, it's like, because I feel like it's not, I don't do anything that is impactful enough. And maybe that's the driving force, to just try to be, like, do more and do it better and try to help others. I think it's somehow, I don't know, it's nothing that I would describe as impactful enough.
I think maybe I had to, of course it's a hard question, you know, but it's more about, I like how what just happened that, you know, Hannah had a specific response to it based on the work that she's done, you know, and then Anna turned it into something that she wished for, to have an impact. And you know what, when I'm interviewed, you usually never answer the question. I turn it into something I want to be answered. So you can also use the platform, of course, of addressing whatever you want. And especially you, Angelica. Everyone else sent me 5-6 pictures and gave me a few objects to put on a table. You sent me about 7 PDF with text that people should look, or maybe let's do that. Why don't you give me all the text that you brought and tell us why you think it's important to read this specific text?
The moratorium I already mentioned.
I can still put it
Yeah,
down.
you still put it there.
That's very nice. I need some tips. Lockdown is coming.
Yeah, reading tips. Reading tips with Angelica now. So then I brought this very classic one. Why have there been no great women artists? Because what we talked about today, this is a text from Linda Noschlin, is nothing. It has been discussed for ages already, and we know what the problems are, that there are structures that are not made for women, or, like, let's say especially made for white men to, like, play the canon, to be there. So it's not about that there are no good women artists, but the conditions are just not there for them to flourish. And then, because I thought we would maybe talk about innovation as well, I brought this Hail the Maintainers. This is a lot about it's really like reading lessons with me. It's about the idea of innovation and technological progress that brings us forward compared to the idea of maintaining and taking care of things, what I mentioned already in the framework of the moratorium. Just a rethinking of, like, how we understand resources. And I'm remembering a point. I will definitely, like, add this as well, that you cannot bring everything to the future, because you need to critically reflect on the not so good things of the present, let's say. But I like the text a lot, because it's connecting the idea of technology and innovation as something solely positive, let's say, and critically reflecting that back with the idea of maintaining things. Then I brought Feminism for the 99%. That's an obvious reading tip, I would say. And
why is it obvious?
Because I think we are, like, I'm not here to be feminist for only 1%. So it's not about bringing more women to the top position, but it's more about enabling everyone to participate. I think this is maybe the main point for me as well in this talk, as well, that's maybe the point of inclusion, huh? Not helping the 1% that is already there, let's say, but enabling 99% to participate. And then there is Maya Göbel, Unsere Welt neu denken, Rethink Our World.
Never.
Yeah, I was prepared for a lot of topics, so I brought a lot of books. That's mostly on the climate crisis.
Really have to comment on this book cover. This is like so made in German in a way.
Maya Goebbels said she was forced to have. She was forced to have an image, a portrait on the cover, but she actually didn't want to have a smiling. She didn't want to have herself smiling on the cover, so she put this very strict image on top. And she's actually, when you look at interviews she's having on the book, all the time she's being asked why she's not smiling on the photo.
Let me see it again, the cover.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to have the back text. It's not about the front, actually.
Yeah. She talks a lot about critically reflecting on how we understand our economy and what the models behind the economy are that we are believing in so strongly, like the Homo economicus, this idea of the rational human being that decides only like according to the market logics. That is a theoretical model, but is heavily influencing how we are acting in the world, or like how the system is designed we are acting in.
I believe you actually have a A4 printout about an alternative economic system. No?
No. This is describing our current economic system and the idea of growth that is ingrained in it. This systemic relation of fostering or like having growth as the basis of our economic system that floats into investment. From investment comes innovation. From innovation comes higher production, lower employment that leads back to higher demand, and then you have growth again. So this circle of that we always need to consume more to kind of like put more money into the system, that is kind of like ingrained in competition, is a system we are living in basically. So how do we rethink this model as well that is on a more systemic level to really fundamentally change the world and how we act within the world. So this is kind of like the range of topics I'm currently involved with, let's say. And I said before that I don't see enough impact yet, and I think this is why I'm like having all this stuff because I'm trying to like have more knowledge about the world to make an impact. So this is the only thing I don't know, add to this conversation, or like that's what I try. I try to share what I find out. I try to enable others to have knowledge, and I hope it has an impact. But it's up to the receivers to decide if they want to be want to grab the knowledge and do something with it. So I just try to do what I do, and then I see how it goes.
But in all this conversation, I always figure it doesn't matter. Each of your topic kind of interconnects with each other, but also stands for itself in a way. But one thing that I always come across is this tiredness of people who actually are the activists or are working within the topics, and they're almost like devastated or even sometimes annoyed about the fact that the other people don't educate themselves, because at the end we are the ones who are doing the work, sharing the information, getting involved, building these communities, talking about these topics, and trying to educate other people. And a lot of work that you, for example, also, Angelica, you do online is not necessarily paid labor, but you still do it because you believe in it. And one of the things that is also on the internet is the Sound Advice organization, maybe, and I'm saying that specifically because it's very interesting, and maybe you can elaborate on it also.
Sound Advice is an Instagram page as well. They are a collective of people, trying to make the architectural world more diverse, let's say, or to push diverse thoughts in architecture, to make people reflect on how people are represented, or rather not represented in architecture. I think I brought the book because it stands for a lot of things in my work, in a way, because it's like I only know about it because Instagram exists. I only know about it because I kind of like stumbled upon the Instagram profile, and they are doing this work because they created a network and like are able to, or they got the project funding through the Instagram account that they made. So I think coming back to what you just said, like that so many people are burned out from being activists. I think surrounding myself with people that are pushing for the same, and critically reflecting on how my resources are and how much I can do, and being in like having this energy around me is like how I deal with it. But it's not as if
how we continue, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just found a title which I really like. You don't have the answer to a problem you don't understand. So it needs discussion formats like this, or artistic work, or your activist work, to point out the problem. And then, of course, change is always slow. Maybe it touches the top up there, the 1%, and there's somehow the way to change the system and infiltrate it. And so I think that's a quite nice headline.
Yeah, from there, I just would like to add a thought that we had also already in the pre-talk. We talked about like, is it enough to talk, or like, what do we do? When do we come and take action? And what you just said, Hannah, about like being aware of what the problem actually is a very important part of finding solutions. Because if you don't know what you're working on, how can you find a solution? So finding words for the problems we have, or like finding words for what you experience, as well, like knowing about other people that experience the same problems or like difficulties as well. This is a potential I see in social media as well, helps and enables people to form networks, to take action, to just like do something. Yeah.
Alexander, how about you, and continuing with the topics that you're addressing in the work?
Yes, I would like to share these three. Maybe one by one. Yeah. When I started, thinking about what was my next research, I decided to focus on architecture, which is my education, but also related to something personal of myself, like what do I know? And I know, being in Europe, I know about being a person of color, immigrant from Peru, but I also know about being a gay person. And that's what I decided to work on, or to research the intersection between architecture and queerness or my sexuality. When I was starting to relate these two ideas, or these two concepts or themes, I always got let's say, the image of bars, gay bars or gay streets. And for me, because I come from an intersectional point of view about space, I try to be as open as possible and as inclusive as possible. And therefore, what I decided to research was not spaces, but experiences. And that's how I developed this theory, or this methodology, to analyze queerness in cities, that I call the 3 queer spheres. And they are actually metaphors on the process of realizing you are queer or different in a homogeneous society, or in this case, heteronormative society. So the first stage, or the first sphere that I call affective, it's the self-discovery, that moment that you realize that you are different in this world, which is an intimate and affective space or moment. The second one is the X 5 times, because I don't know how to call it, but it's the spaces or the set of experiences that once you realize you're different, you try to look for people like you. And this actually happen in physical spaces, virtual spaces. So this level of research goes into this kind of, this sphere, this part of the research. And the third one is that when you realize that you're different and you've met people like you actually, being specifically about LGBTIQ plus people I'm talking about right now, you have the decision to be out or not in the public sphere. And that's why I call it political, because it's very political depending on where you are in the world. So these three spheres, please, the second one. Yes. And then, so what do we share for example, in the first sphere? Well, actually, it's what I already explained a little bit. We shared an emotional process, this realization that we are different. And then the next stage is we realize that what we share is also the desire to be together with people like us. And then we share the present time. And the present time is the conclusion, let's say, or the result of all of the fights or struggles or progression of society that has happened before. So these three things that we share that are not space, but are experiences or topics more. Could you please put the third image? Because my interest is space, but not necessarily physical. I think these three spheres relate to spaces. The first one, the affective sphere, relates more to a space of representations, which are the representations that made us realize we're different. So these representations of, for example, heteronormativity or white cis representation of the norm, are the things that make us realize we're different. Otherwise, this wouldn't happen. So my research at this level analyzes the representations of each city at a certain moment. So the representations of that now in Berlin are not the same as 20 years ago, or are not the same as now in Lima. But a queer person in Berlin, well, maybe not in 2021 anymore, maybe not so much, but let's say 10 years ago, being queer or being gay was still like very difficult even in Europe. So to realize, at least when you're very young. So that experience, for example, is shared by queer people in Germany, in Peru, or most probably 99% of the world where we live. The second sphere analyzes, as I said, the spaces of performances and symbols, which is the spaces where we relate to each other. And the third one, because it's about the today and the past, reflects on the spaces of memory and the public space where all of the political struggle that make the present be the way it is has happened. So my goal is this framework or methodology that I have to, that I use to approach cities and this is what I say, I research queerness on cities, that's my goal. This methodology I want to use as Anna wants to continue her research in certain topics. This is methodology, my goal is to test it everywhere in the world. And by this having a yeah. Well, not everywhere, but yeah. But I don't have to do it. It can also be taken by other people. I would be very pleased of that. But the thing is that by doing this and by applying this research into, or this methodology into cities, for example, we can create alternative stories or alternative histories of the cities we inhabit, and we can see it in a different way. And that's the goal of these three spheres, three queer spheres, to have alternative stories of the world we inhabit. And these projects I presented, of course, they deal with this framework. I cannot do everything at the same time, but I think they are developing one of these three spheres that I just presented to you.
That's actually the perfect answer to how do we steer the world together in new directions. A quick applause for Alex. I would say it's a final round, exactly. I'm already getting a little wave from the corner. There was a great answer to the perspective and the new possibility of a new direction. Do you guys have final words or comments, notes? The last picture that you want to show?
I have a comment on what you said earlier about activists being, I don't know, annoyed about people not educating themselves. And I wanted just to quickly add that that's not counting for me. I'm not frustrated with the people, but I'm very frustrated with just heavy systems that are not moving, and they are not moving, they are not letting us in. And while they are like stealing our ideas and incorporating them and making them sellable or whatever, and I think that's the frustration for me. That really makes me mad, but it's not a good, it's not positive enough to end, no.
I don't think it has to have a positive end, but what you're saying is exactly that. I mean, there's some people who do the work and they are robust enough to say, okay, it doesn't affect me, but I will do it for others, or I do it for others without, like not knowing where it actually can lead to, but based on the community that you work with, as you said, Angelica, it makes me move or continue, So I think there's a different reality to every person in this room, at this table, in the world, of course. But I agree, the craziness of some of us having these ideas, how you could kind of introduce this change, but then there's the people who actually pretending to introduce this change for, maybe sometimes even financial reasoning, which is obviously not a positive note to the end, but a very important note, I believe. Hannah, Angelica?
No. Hard one. I don't really know. I just keep on working and try to be visible with my work, but that's all I can do as an artist, I have the feeling. Also, I'm shifting between being a little activist but yeah, try to continue.
Try to continue.
We keep on pushing.
And okay, one thing is maybe make more connections. Don't try to be there on yourself. Build gangs and try to keep things together. Yeah.
I think the consequence of this conversation is that we all do not see enough impact yet, even though we all want to see more impact.
Can I say one more thing before,
course,
before you
please.
close? You need to
Yeah.
close. I think there's two ways to change things. There is either radical change or slow transformation. But there's always change. So I think this gives me a lot of hope.
That's a perfect ending. Even though I never got a briefing if the audience is able to say something.
Please questions.
But it actually would be really nice. Felix, what do you think? Felix?
Nothing.
Yeah, okay. Dear audience, sitting here with us, haven't been listening to this informal, formal meeting. It's actually meant to be informal, but then it's really hard to be not feel formal at this table. Does anyone has a question or comment? It's always hard. Don't be shy. Wait. I could have left the microphone.
No, to break the ice, thank you for tonight and for opening up a lot of doors. I really like the format, Matylda. That's pretty genius. I mean, we can be twitched, but really like also that now we look at all the different layers that we discussed. So there's Marlene Peltzek housed in the background. There's another layer. No, actually, I don't have the question. I just wanted to thank you. I thought, and I'm so sorry. No, put this back again. Regarding your spheres, it's so funny that you left the axis there, but I think you named it yourself. I think it's relational, effective, relational, and political.
Sure.
Because you described it as that's the place where people relate. So just as I thought about it or looking at it. And Angelica, thank you for all the literature. I took pictures. And yeah, thanks.
I also would quickly note one important thing, because, for example, I personally also have never visited the museum in Treptow. And also last summer, and I'm a new Berliner, I only found out that there's really a Bezirksmuseum, and the one in Neukölln. Wow, have you seen that? It's a beautiful building, actually. And there's an online tour about the exhibition. Seeing what was the title again?
Zurückgeschaut?
Yeah, zurückgeschaut, the exhibition zurückgeschaut. There's an online viewing on the 4th of December.
Yes, yes.
I've seen online, so please do not hesitate to see the exhibition if you cannot make it personally. And of course, please follow up Context Tour, Angelica's actions, and obviously everyone's Instagram account. And I'm pretty sure that we're going to see a lot of things from Alexander and in his research of queer spaces and his performances or Vogue events, but also of Hannah, who also very soon has an opening in Strasbourg, I believe. So we will definitely see more of these 4 people that have joined this conversation. I'm very grateful for your presence and your input, and I hope that this is the start of being connected to each other and seeing what the future might bring. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Matylda.
Yeah, thank you, Matylda.
Yes, thank you very much.
And I obviously hope that the conversation continues outside with a drink.
Yeah, hello. Then I would like to get also one time the last words, because I have to say, shout out the thank you for the Landesdenkmalamt Berlin, who enabled this event tonight and everything that we worked on. And thank you to all of you, Anna, Alex, Hannah, and Angelica, for your work, that you shared this with us and that you dedicate your work to challenge the world and society to change. And thanks that you keep going with that. It was really inspiring and motivating to listen to you. And like Matylda said, thank you to you, of course, as well. Outside, there are some pretzels and drinks waiting for you to continue the exchange, if you like. So feel welcome and invited to have a drink with us. Thank you very much for joining us here.
Another applause.
Jetzt müssen wir hier erstmal aufräumen.
Ja.